Welcome to Tommy Solo's Famous Friends. This is where I get to chat with people who I've connected with in the world of arts and entertainment over the years. And today we're doing another one of our Rounding the Corner episodes, this time with studio ace and former member of the band The Hunt. Welcome back to the show, Brian Gagnon.
Thank you very much, Tommy. How you doing?
Well, I'm doing all right. It feels pretty good knowing that we're rounding the corner, seemingly coming out of this COVID thing soon, as long as everybody keeps doing their part and keeps the vaccination wagon rolling. I think we're going to be all right.
Yep. Have you had your shots?
I've had both. How about you?
Yep, I've had both mine too.
Yeah, now, I didn't have much of an ill effect. I had a bit of a sore arm, more so on the second one. How was your reaction overall to the vaccine?
Just a sore arm, nothing else.
Yeah. Yeah, it seems to be. The majority feeling is it wasn't that much of a big deal, and now it's a lot easier. Two people can just walk into the drugstore and get their shot, so let's keep our fingers crossed and hope that we are going to continue to make our way to the end of this dark tunnel. So, Brian, let's go back to what you were doing at the beginning of the pandemic. I understand that you were very busy at Harlow Sound Studio doing sessions, and what happened to that once COVID hit?
Well, yeah, I was booked practically every day doing different, mostly working with single artists who didn't have a band and needed music in the background and, their song to sound like a band for their recording. And I had something going on pretty much every day. And it was going quite good. And then the pandemic hit and it went to zero. I had no clients whatsoever. And I don't blame people for not wanting to come to the studio. I didn't really want to deal with people myself anyway at that point because it was pretty bad.
Yeah, and it's most unfortunate that singing is one of the most volatile ways to spread even a cold.
Yeah.
So that's unfortunate. Now let's remind the people of your career before you became a studio ace. You're well known for being a part of The Hunt, and what were the other bands that you came up with?
They started off, I lived in St. Catharines. I grew up there, and I was in a group called Bull Rush, and we did a whole bunch of dates with Rush and Mahogany Rush. And at the time we did that, Neil Peart wasn't in the band yet. It was John Rutsey playing drums for Rush. But I was friends with Neil, seeing we both lived in St. Catharines, and we used to, get together quite often at his apartment there and listen to music. And I never did play in a band with him, although he played around St. Catharines a lot. Anyway, that was the main band I was in St. Catharines, Bull Rush. In St. Catharines, there was a lot of really, really good musicians. So, that's where I sort of learned how to try to keep up with everybody because there was a lot of good bands in the Niagara region at that time, a lot of good musicians.
Yeah, there certainly was.
And Neil was in a few of the bands in the city, and he was always quite good, energetic, and a little bit ahead of his time in his drumming, which I noticed right off. He liked to do things that, he heard on records by Yes and The Who and stuff like that, whereas a lot of the other drummers were pretty straightforward. Yeah, so I grew up doing that, and then just after Bull Rush, there was a band from Toronto called Dillinger, and we'd done a date with them. And I guess their bass player was either leaving or they were getting rid of him. I'm not really sure what happened there. And so they asked me if I would be interested. And they already had an album out and so on. So I ended up leaving Bull Rush and going with Dillinger. And we had a lot of fun. That was quite a good band. It was excellent musicians in that band. Then it started just to get a little stagnant after a while. And, we were just playing bars 6 nights a week and so on. So I decided to take some of the guys from Dillinger, and I had written rock tunes.
Editor's note: sometimes while we do these interviews, the phone connection gets a little bit wonky, and I believe that what Brian was trying to say there is that he had written a whole bunch of rock tunes. Now let's hear what else he has to say.
And took most of Dillinger and then added Paul Kersey, who was with Max Webster for years, on the drums, and we started the band. And we were rehearsing in a place called the Hunt Motor Inn. The owner of the Hunt Motor Inn, I believe his name was Mark, said, well, if you play here for a weekend, I'll give you a free motel room to rehearse in. So we got together and learned some of the songs that I'd written. And Frank Davies, who was with Daffodil Records at the time, had Foot in Cold Water and so on, heard that I'd sort of started a new band, so he wanted to come down and see us. So he came down to the Hunt Motor Inn and the motel room we were rehearsing in and opened his briefcase with a record contract. So we basically signed on the spot. And we didn't really have a name for the band, so he said, "What are you calling the band?" And I looked out the window and I saw the big sign for the Hunt Motor Inn. And I said, "Well, we'll call it the Hunt." He goes, "Good name, okay." And that's how the name came to be.
Oh, boy, everything by the seat of your pants. I know Dillinger was a very popular bar band, and I know I was on the road around the same time, and it was kind of hit or miss for the money. Were you guys doing okay with Dillinger, like as a bar band?
Well, I was married with a couple of kids at the time, and I ended up moving to Toronto from St. Catharines because I wanted to sort of get more into the Toronto scene when I joined Dillinger. And we were making a living. I was able to rent a little house and move to Toronto. So, yeah, we were doing okay. It was nothing special.
Yeah, now that was primarily a cover band, wasn't it?
It was quite a bit of a cover band. They did a few original songs, but it was mostly a cover band. But the musicians in that band, when I saw them, when we played with them, I was just blown away by, how good they were. Jacques Harrison was keyboard player, and he also played flute and sax. Just an incredible musician. And then Paul Coburn on guitar. He was a very knowledgeable guitar player, really good.
Yeah, I believe I saw you guys once or twice up in North Bay, probably at the St. Regis Hotel up there. And I remember the band was really tight, yeah. So it must have been quite the change to go from a steady working cover band in Dillinger and then to doing the original thing. I know you signed a record deal almost right away, but was there an economic impact in that change?
Not at first, no. We continued on playing a lot of, 6-nighter bar gigs, even when we signed the record deal. And then as it went along, our album got really popular in Texas and the southern states, and it was doing well in Europe. So we were starting to get airplay over here. And once we started to get airplay from our album, basically we ended up making twice as much a night. And we weren't playing 6 nights, we were playing 2 or 3 nights. And so, yeah, it got a lot better. We ended up getting buying a truck and buying our PA system instead of renting all that stuff, and getting a full crew of road guys, and started doing a lot of concerts, especially in Northern Ontario. We did a lot of arenas with the local bands opening for us because our album was quite popular up in, Northern Ontario as well. It was always exciting to play in an arena full of people who knew the words to your songs that you've written.
Yeah, there's nothing like that. Singing along, that's just an awesome feeling, yeah.
Yeah, and so it started getting better and better as it went. And that went for a few years, and because of, and I don't like to badmouth anybody, but because our management wasn't that strong, and we were offered, Rush's manager, Ray Daniels, he offered to manage the band because he quite liked us, and our management wouldn't let us out of our contract, and so we sort of ended up getting a little bit blackballed in that area because of management. And I won't, of course, mention any names or anything because that's not fair to do. But and things started going a little downhill, and we just started playing bars again, 6 nights a week, 5 nights a week. And I was getting fairly tired of doing that over a few years. So I ended up just retiring from playing live and got into my real passion, which was, studio engineering and producing.
Right, yeah, and that there was a lot less stress, I think, and I personally quit playing the bars a while ago for all of the above reasons. And the guys in suits always have a lot of ideas that don't really have a lot to do with the music and aren't really that encouraging, and it's not really an awesome environment to be around the business side on the road. So I get why you would want to just get to the part of the music that you enjoy the most. And I really enjoy being creative in the studio as well. So then that became your career, and you've been quite successful, and once again, COVID put a damper on that. Now that we're seeing a rise in vaccination numbers and things are opening up a little bit, are you starting to see more things on the horizon coming your way in the studio?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, last night I got 2 different emails of people wanting to start new projects and asking me if I've had my shots and so on and so forth. And so I can see it picking up now. I can see the doors opening just a bit more to what especially to what they were, 6 months ago. It was so quiet. I was sitting at home totally bored.
Yeah, no kidding.
But yeah, it's starting. I can see it starting to pick up now, which is really, it's good. I really enjoyed working with people in the studio, so I really missed that part of it.
Yeah. I guess it'll be a relief in knowing that primarily the people that you're going to work with are vaccinated and it can be done safely. I know I just recently had to let a member of my band go because we have a pretty big show coming up on August 1st. And this person so much as told me that they weren't going to get vaccinated. So, it's interesting how it's affecting our industry. And it's just too bad that somehow we've politicized this pandemic.
Yeah, I think it's really important to get the vaccination. I know a few people who don't believe in it and a few people who think it's just a bad flu. And I always say to those people, well, ask so-and-so, their father died of it last week. So it's not just a bad flu. And it's something that the numbers have gone so far down since the vaccination came out that I really believe that that's working.
Absolutely it is. And it's no different really than polio, smallpox, measles, mumps,
chickenpox. All of these deadly diseases have been eradicated by vaccines. The virus is the problem and vaccines are the solution. It's that simple, really.
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly right.
It's our only way out of this thing.
Yep, I think you're right.
Yeah. Now, do you still have a relationship with Paul Kersey?
I saw him a couple of years ago. He was playing with a band called the Wheelers in St. Catharines, and it might have been a few years ago. And we got along really good. We always got along pretty good. He was a different type of fellow. Like, we weren't the same type of people, but we got along pretty good. And he was such a good showman on stage that it was always exciting to play and just look behind me and see him going nuts on the drums.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he's quite the icon as far as Canadian drummers go. I know you mentioned Neil Peart earlier, but Paul Kersey is certainly one of our top shelf drummers.
Yeah, he was always, like I say, he was a great showman, and I would say at least half the audience had their eyes on him while we were playing,
Yeah, and I remember watching Max Webster and having a hard time paying attention to Kim Mitchell in places because Paul was such a bombastic and showy drummer.
Yeah, well, back in those days when Kersey was with Max Webster, that was one of my favorite bands. I just really enjoyed seeing that band. I thought Kim was just so good, and, Kersey was so good, and the rest of them were good too. As a matter of fact, I'm doing an album project with Mike Tilka, the bass player.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and we've been doing that through COVID because he's kept himself very isolated. He's one of those guys, and which I did too. So we've been working on this album project.
Nice. That is so cool.
Do you have any sort of an ETA as to when it'll be out there?
No, it's still in the stages where we still have a couple of songs to finish and, of course, doing the mixing and mastering on everything. But it's really interesting stuff. He has a few friends in on the project, guitar players and bass players. Well, he's a bass player and quite a good drummer. We've been just slowly working on it. Like, we get together once a week and we'll correct some things and do some edits, and I'll add some guitar onto some of the stuff, and we'll do some background vocals. And he's doing a lot of singing, so it's quite interesting.
Yeah, really. That's usually been your gig.
Yeah.
So that sounds very interesting. I'm glad to know that you've been able to do some collaboration with other musicians. That's been one of the things that's helped keep me sane through all of this, is that I've been
playing my music at home, at least,
and trying to do some online collaborations. And I don't know, if we didn't have the music, I don't know what we would have done through this.
Yeah, I've ended up getting a lot of time to spend with my family. I've got 8 grandkids and 1 great granddaughter. So I'm getting up there in age, but I've been able to spend some more time with them, which was not too bad. We were isolated for a while, but then when things calmed down, we got together a lot. So that helped me get through it a bit too.
Yeah, I just got to see my daughter and my grandson for the first time in over a year, very recently.
Wow.
And, they're all vaccinated now. And so that's what a feeling that is,
To just know that you can spend
time with your friends and family and not have to worry about killing grandpa,
Yeah. They were always worried about me because I'm a smoker and so on, and I've got a bit of a cough, and they figured that if I were to get something, it would be deadly. One client that I had passed away from COVID quite recently, actually, about a month ago. And he was older. He was sort of my age and a really talented guy. And he said to me at one point, when it just got started, he said, if I ever get this, it'll kill me. And he got it, and it killed him. It was really shocking because he was doing quite well in Europe with the stuff we'd done.
It's very unfortunate, how there were so many people out there, especially early on, naysayers and, the misinformed who were just saying, it won't kill you, and you got to be old to die from it. And, that's just so unfortunate that selfish attitude is what killed your friend.
And by that, I don't mean your friend's attitude,
but the attitude of people that he came into contact with who just figured, I'm young and I'm strong and whatever, and the strong will survive. Well, that just is so wrong.
It is. I mean, it was a very strange thing to go through in your lifetime, is a pandemic like this, because you always hear about how it could happen, but you never think it would. I mean, the whole world changed,
Yeah.
Yeah.
An earth-shattering event.
So now that things are looking a little bit brighter and things are starting to open up a little bit more, Brian, is there one thing that you're personally looking forward to being able to do that you haven't been able to do up until now because of COVID?
I guess just going out with my wife and walking around in the malls and so on. We haven't really done that because it's still not time to do it, I feel, but we used to enjoy doing that, looking, just getting out. And then also, I like fishing, so I haven't done that in a long time either because, I just sort of kept myself isolated.
Yeah, I'm also an avid fisherman, and I'm sure you've seen some of my fish pictures on social media.
I have.
Yeah.
But that's great.
The thing is that you can't really be heading down to the Bronte, and standing shoulder to shoulder with a bunch of guys during this. That's one thing that I will be happy when we can get out there more and do that as well.
Yeah. Yeah, we used to like to go up north and, we had a trailer on a lake up north for years, and we don't have that anymore, but we had basically our own little lake, and I had a boat, and I used to spend the whole day out in the lake.
Yeah, and for me, there's nothing that quite matches being out on the water with a fishing rod in hand for solitude and peace of mind.
Yeah.
No better way to de-stress other than playing music, I guess.
Yeah. Well, yeah, music is one of those things that just seems, once I get into the studio, the last few sessions I've had, the whole world goes away. What's really going on goes away, and you're just sort of immersed in the music and, what it does for you.
I've been saying for years that music is the doctor.
Yeah. Well, it's kept me alive.
Yeah, that's
I'll be 71 at the end of this week, so I still feel, especially when I'm in the studio working with people in the studio, I still feel like I'm 25.
Well, that's the beauty and the magic of the music. Yeah, absolutely. Well, Brian, I want to thank you once again for taking the time out of your day to do this with me. And until next time, cheers.
Yeah, it was my pleasure. I always like talking to you. And for people listening, you do a lot of music on Facebook, a lot of songs and so on. And I really enjoy watching those too. I think you're quite talented.
Well, that's my lot, is to try and make people smile. So let's just keep doing that. And we'll talk again before too long, Brian.
Okay. And if you ever want to do any recording, just give me a shout.
Absolutely. Oh, remind everybody of the website just before we go.
I've changed it a few times. I think it's just called Brian Gagnon Productions.
Okay, very cool. All right, cheers, my friend.
Okay, thank you.
Well, there you have it. Brian Gagnon, rock star in his own right and studio ace. And yeah, I'd love to go into the studio and record with you sometime before too long, Brian. Hey, and to that website, it's actually briangagnonmusic.com. That's BRIANGAGNON music.com. So that was fun, but we're going to put the Rounding the Corner series on hold for a while. We recorded this episode a couple of weeks ago when we were not quite yet into the fourth wave of COVID in Ontario. So in the meantime, people, please stay safe and observe safety protocols, respect your friends and neighbors, and hopefully we can get back to where we were headed toward the end of this dark tunnel before too long. And without further ado, here is The Hunt with Little Miss Perfection. Tommy Solo's Famous Friends is a one-man production, meaning that I've done all the work, including producing, editing, guest acquisition, etc. All rights reserved. You can find me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. The theme song for Tommy Solo's Famous Friends was written and recorded by Tommy Solo with a little help from my friends in the night crew. And hey, if you like the show, why not subscribe? Until next time, cheers.